Okay, so we made it to Ashtabula, and we made it to the trail where we're gonna go see where the bridge, the Ashtabula Bridge, was. So it was December 29th, 1876, when a Lakeshore and Michigan Southern luxury passenger train known as the Pacific Express Number 5 crossed over this bridge right here. And because the bridge was poorly designed, poorly maintained, and poorly constructed, well, that was the end result. Everything except for one locomotive ended up going into the drink in the middle of a blizzard, and, well, death and destruction happened. And there was a lot of, famous people that were, on the train. There was Philip Bliss, the composer. So if you know any Christian song, some people say that 90% of the Christian songs he wrote, and he was gone basically. And then, so there's a lot of history here, and it's a place of, you got to be respectful when it comes to this place. So we're gonna go check it out. The river's pretty full, so I don't think we can get up close to the bridge, but we'll try our best. So anyways, see you guys in a little bit. The Ashtabula disaster was the deadliest and most notorious bridge failure of the 19th century and a transforming event in American history. It happened in Ashtabula, Ohio on December 29, 1876, during a raging blizzard. In this town off the shores of Lake Erie, an all-iron railroad bridge collapsed, sending one of the most luxurious trains to ever ride the rails, train number 5, the Pacific Express, plummeting 70 feet into a frozen river. Of the 170 souls that were on board, only 75 survived, most with serious injuries. Of the 95 that perished, 47 were identified and 48 were unidentifiable. The Ashtabula Bridge was built and collapsed in the historical context of tensions between the first big business in America, the railroad industry, along with people who used the railroads, and state and federal governments that had no desire to regulate them. During this time of great industrial growth and technological development, people were both fascinated and fearful of the many new innovations that were claiming to make their lives easier. However, the lack of regulatory oversight of steam trains, steamships, and bridges, coupled with experimentation and huge expansion, led to an accident rate that aroused great alarm for the American public. For the first time in American history, the country was not led by elected politicians, but by the captains of industry. The loss of 95 lives in a small city off the shores of Lake Erie stunned the entire nation. Ashtabula forced our nation to look at safety issues because of the public outcry brought about by the national press. This was not just one more railroad accident or bridge failure. It was the foreshadowing of the coming populist movement of 1891. People were demanding the government take action regarding the railroad's abysmal safety record. Changes were made and laws were passed because of Ashtabula. This disaster was a crucial moment that fueled change in the relationship between big business, government, and the public. Every movement needs a rallying point. The Ashtabula Bridge collapse was one of these moments. So I don't know if you saw on camera or heard, but this place is, nowadays a perfect spot for fishing, boating, kayaking, the whole 9 yards. But you can imagine this whole area would have been covered in snow. You got, blizzard force winds and no light whatsoever other than torches and headlamps. It's just, it's kind of hard to put yourself in those shoes unless you're actually there. And then there's a sign for railroad disaster. I think I see the bridge up ahead, but I'm not 100% sure. Everything is so overgrown. I should have came back in the fall. Maybe I could have seen the bridge a little better, but we'll try. So I guess we just follow the trail down, because it's not that way. So, because I think the trail runs out right by the bridge. So, we'll see if we can see it. And then again, there is a little section of the river that comes close to the trail, because from what I've seen from videos at least. Then there's the hospital over there. I don't know how well you saw that, but that hospital right up there was created right after the disaster, because Ashtabula didn't have a hospital at the time. They didn't even have a coroner. But the yeah, that was the sad thing about it. So they had to do a coroner's jury, and then like I think it was like 5 guys, maybe it was 6. I can't remember. Either 5 guys or 6 guys got together, and they basically said these were the reasons why the bridge collapsed, etc., etc. I recommend watching Engineering Tragedy: The Ashtabula Train Disaster. You can find it on Vimeo. Len Brown and there's the bridge. Len Brown and Patty Brown made it. Has historical reenactments in it, among other things. The river's looking pretty low, but I don't want to. Yeah. No, that's too deep. That's too deep for me. But let me show you the bridge here. There it is. That's the spot. Now I will say the Norfolk Southern still runs across the top, right over there. They still do. Trains still pass over the Ashtabula River, but that's where it happened. Now I'll put up a picture of the bridge, but you know, this was not the original bridge. I think this was the second replacement after the first, because it was replaced with a normal Howe truss bridge. The one that was the collapsed one was an all iron construction Howe truss bridge, which wasn't. It was an experimental design and not necessarily, you know, the best design. Hence why there was really no examples of it made before or since. There used to be a pump house somewhere on the west side of the river, and it was like, I guess, for river water. And there was a set of stairs that the rescuers took to get down to the river to rescue those who could, you know, be pulled out. But most of them, you know, most of the people that died, you know, survived the crash, and it was the coal-fired and oil-burning lanterns that just did them in, because these were all wooden passenger cars, so it became kindling at that point, and so it just completely engulfed this entire area. I mean, the glow could be seen in town from the flames. I want to see how much closer we can get and go from there. I think there might be a trail on the west side over there somewhere to get us down to at least river level. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll find out. Okay, so here's a more up-close look at the bridge. So you can see it's a arch-style bridge. People have found artifacts specifically under that arch right there, because a lot of the impact point for everything was kind of right in that area. So you have the Syracuse leading the way, leading the charge. The engineer, I forgot his name, but he felt that the bridge started to go out from under him, and he opened up the throttle to maximum. And when he did that, it broke the coupling because it was link and pin. And he got the Syracuse, or however you pronounce it, across the bridge completely. And he looked around, and he could see the rear locomotive, which I forgot the name of, plummet into the river. And it just completely went upside down. I think the fireman died instantaneously, and then the engineer crawled out, and I think he survived, but I'm not 100% sure. But it laid upside down basically right there, right about where the bottom of the arch is on the west side. And then it was just splinters of cars, mostly right in the middle, and then a little underneath the arch there. And then the rest of them kind of like fell in like right about there. So, and then obviously the, you know, oil lanterns and coal heated stoves set everything on fire. And then the pump house, I believe, is on the other side of the bridge, like right in there in that little shade area, because that's long gone now. I think the stairs have like been lost to time. I swear somebody found him at one point, but there's like a model of how it looks. But that to me makes the most sense that it would be over there, because it's on the town side, rather than over here where there's just nothing. And I don't think this has changed in the last 100 and some odd years. So it makes more sense for it to be over there than it does over here. So I'm gonna try to get some photos, and then we're gonna head back to the car and head back to Mill Creek. One of the unfortunate victims of this tragedy was Philip Paul Bliss and his wife. Philip Paul Bliss was an American composer, conductor, and writer of several hymns, and a bass baritone gospel singer. I mean, you can probably just imagine what that would sound like. I mean, he wrote many well-known hymns, including Hold the Fort, which came out in 1870, Almost Persuaded, 1871, Hallelujah, What a Savior, 1875, Let the Lower Lights Be Burning, Wonderful Words of Life, 1875, and The Tomb for Horatio Spafford's It Is Well With My Soul. So if you've heard any of these songs in church, wow, he probably, some people say 90% of it he wrote. I don't know if that's true or not, but any different, like any hymn that you've heard, he probably wrote it, or composed it, or whatever. But like, this was a really bad tragedy. I mean, a lot of famous people died. I mean, he was famous. He wrote so much good music. And then you have like the first cousin to Rutherford B. Hayes, the president-elect at the time. Like, it was just a complete tragedy, and it's hard to describe how many people this affected. So we have one more stop to make here in Ashtabula before we head back to Mill Creek, and that's the cemetery where the unidentified dead are buried. And I believe Charles Collins was the chief engineer of the railroad at the time of the disaster, and he was in charge of all bridge inspection and everything else on the railroad. And for whatever reason, Amasa Stone, the designer of the bridge, did not want Charles involved with the construction, but expected him to maintain and upkeep the bridge without even knowing the specific details of its construction, which I don't understand why. And I feel like it was just a sly or something. No one really knows for sure. And unfortunately, he got placed with some of the blame for the tragedy because he was responsible for its upkeep and maintenance. And what happened was he was murdered. It was reported he was very upset by the disaster, wondering if he could have probably done more or something, and he, was going to go testify, and then he was found dead the next morning, and it was staged to look like a suicide, but it wasn't. So a year and a half later, or maybe even a year later, I'm not 100% sure, his skull was examined by two separate doctors, and they both determined he was murdered. But for whatever reason, this fact had been lost to time until 2001, when the examination records had been recovered, and it was revealed that he was in fact murdered. And it's really sad because he really felt for the people that were in the wreck. He felt for the people of Ashtabula because he knew he needed to do more. He needed to somehow address. I feel like he took a lot of the blame himself, and he really shouldn't have. As in all disasters, heroes always emerge, and this one was no different. Villains also appear too, unfortunately. That's how these things work. And, one of the heroes that was supposed to be there wasn't really a hero at all. The fire chief, G.A. Knapp was said to have shown up to the disaster drunk and so inept that he failed to take command of the situation, and as a result, all three fire engines that had arrived on the scene sat idle while the wreckage burned, unfortunately. But some heroes did come out of this. Citizens of Ashtabula actually broke through the ice in the river and did a bucket brigade, even though it was futile to do so. They did the best they could, rescuing as many people as they could, but unfortunately, approximately 92 people died in the wreck. Thieves also emerged out of the crowd. There was a camp up the river, and it was full of like ne'er-do-wells and stuff like that, and they would come out of the darkness and they would pretend to help, but they ended up, stealing people's, belongings. And some of these were eventually returned, but it definitely laid a long dark shadow over the town of Ashtabula. Some other heroes that came out of the woodwork were Charles B. Leake, America's first African American telegraph operator, and James Manning. Both of them stayed at their post for over 50 hours, sending out telegraph messages and making sure that everyone had what they need, whether it be family members of the people that were on the train wanting to know if their loved ones were alive or dead, making sure medical supplies made it to Ashtabula, and made sure that everything was, newspapers and everything was informed. And it was really one of the major reasons why everyone heard about Ashtabula within like the first 48 hours, because these men stayed at their post at the train station just typing out messages constantly. And here we are, where the journey ended. This is Charles Collins' mausoleum. This is where he's buried. And not too far from here, just over that way, is where the memorial to the dead that were not identified are. So we're gonna go check them out. And here it is. This is where the mass grave was buried. They're all buried here. And these are the names of the men and women who, were known to be on the train, but whose remains could not be, identified. Right there's Philip Bliss, the hymnist. Moore, Aldridge. I've heard these names before, but actually seeing them is different. It's a beautiful beautiful obelisk for them, and it's quiet, very quiet. And peaceful. Monument erected May 30th, 1895. December 29th, 1876 at 7:28 p.m. After the disaster, Amasa Stone was practically ruined. He was the one who designed the bridge and came up with the concept of it, and because of this, his entire world was just shattered. And after 1875, many of his business ventures failed with, financial setbacks and other things. And he also suffered from stomach ulcers, which often kept him awake for 2 hours each night. And the stress of the disaster, everyone turning his, people that were like friends with him turned their back on him, and everything just, went downhill. He, the disaster was believed by the public to have deeply affected him. Amasa Stone, after the disaster, he did do a lot of charity work. He donated his money to churches and other things and universities, and whether it be for financial reason, political gain, or even just for remorse for the disaster, that's what he did. So, was it enough? Who knows? And by 1882, he was suffering from insomnia. His depression was up, and, he was really suffering. And by 1883, he had just completely lost faith in himself, and May 11th, he committed suicide. May 11th, 1883, he committed suicide with a shot through the heart. It was pretty bad. And his wife, spent every day at his graveside making sure it was tended to and all that before she eventually died. And now it is with a heavy heart that I must return to Mill Creek. This was a very humbling experience. Very humbling. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Future Out Productions, signing off.